Hey guys, what's going on? This is Ben, and today I'm going to walk you through my 100 series Alaskan off-road tourer build. I'll first start by covering the purpose that this rig serves me, and then I'll get into specifics by breaking it down into three sections, being the exterior, the interior cab, and storage for the trunk, bumper, and roof. Let's get into it. Hello, this is Future Ben, and as I'm editing this video right now, I realize that it is too long. So I'm going to break it down into two videos. This video will cover section 1, exterior, and section 2, interior. And the second video will cover storage for gear and camping. Bringing it inside the Land Cruiser here, there's kind of some dogs barking in the neighborhood, some outside noise. So I figured, why not just get in the cruiser and kind of explain what my use is for this build. So my goal for this 100 series is to build a vehicle that is capable of taking on some moderate wheeling trails across Alaska, do car camping well and be efficient, and then also just kind of be able to get to and from, those cool places, those off-roading trails, be comfortable driving on the highway. And some of that includes some winter driving as well. Not really much camping during the winter, but definitely be able to handle winter driving well. And so it's more of an off-road tour build, I would call it. Some would call it overlanding, but I think how the Australians refer to things are usually as far as 4x4 stuff goes, sometimes a little bit better. So I like calling it an off-road tour because I'm doing touring, which, driving far, going further away, doing some long hauls, and then also some off-road in there as well. And, it's not a super capable off-road build, but I wouldn't also say that it's not just like, what you could do in a Subaru Outback where you're just kind of driving across, going further distances. It's definitely, I think, a good balance in between both of those things. And that's kind of my purpose for this Land Cruiser, and I feel like the 100 series just kind of fills the purpose that I use it for pretty good. So that covers my purpose for this build. So I'm going to go in my first section here, being the exterior setup, and I'm going to go to my desk real quick so I can show you some B-roll and briefly explain my exterior setup goals, and then I'll bring it back into here and I'll just show you the exterior setup as it is currently. Talking exterior setup goals here for my Land Cruiser, we can break it down into two seasons, summer and winter. The summer trails I run here in Alaska often involve small to medium-sized rocks, steep descents and ascents, occasional ruts, and mud. The touring aspect is also mostly summer-oriented, as I don't camp much during the winter, but during the summer, I look forward to long trips in Alaska, both on and off-road. For the winter, a lot of the driving includes driving in the dark, so lighting is pretty important, and tires are important as well. With ice and snow, my tires have to be good on and off-road during the winter. Alright, so we'll start with the basics here. The tires I'm running for the summer, these are my summer tires, so outside of the snow season, are the Yokohama Geolander MT, and they are a 285/75 R18. Did I get that in focus there? So 285/75 R18 works out to about 35 inches by 11.2 inches. These have been a great tire. They're more on the narrow side, which is fine for me. And the tread on these is really good. So this is my first, or was my first summer season with them. It's kind of coming to a close here now. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed these tires. They're pretty good. Once the snow falls, I'll change them out for my Wild Peak AT3W, which is the last model. Those are a slightly different size. They're 295/70 R18, so they're a little bit shorter, about like 34.3 inches tall, I think. And then they're a little bit more wide, being something like 11.7 inches wide. So roughly the same size. But if I was to get another pair, I might go with this size for a winter tire. It is a little bit better maybe in the snow to have a wider tire, but I don't really know if it makes that much of a difference. And these tires have been great, so I do really enjoy having like a true 35-inch tire. It's definitely been pretty beneficial this whole summer season. And so I have the ability to fully turn under compression and with the wheel all the way cranked. I have a 3/4 inch BORA spacer. It was originally sized for those 11.7 inch wide Falkens that I run in the winter, and I just left it on for these MTs. Does a good job, puts the wheels a little bit further out in the front, but the spacer has its own studs, and BORA is a really good company, so I would definitely recommend only running a spacer if you absolutely need to. I was rubbing on the frame, and I like the factory wheels. These are 200 series wheels right now, and then for my winter wheels, I keep the 18-inch OEM wheel, so both OEM wheels, and I really like running the OEM wheels. They're really good. They're available. They're pretty strong too. I beat the crap out of these. And so I run the spacers on these just so I can turn, and that's it. No spacers in the rear. All right, the next big thing here is that I'm re-geared and I have lockers in the front and rear. I did both at the same time to save me money. So I went with Eaton E-lockers and Nitro 488s. The 488s with the 35s pretty much bring it to around the factory gearing ratio. And the E-lockers, for me, having this be more of an off-road tourer build, suit my purposes fine. And I've really enjoyed them. The front locker, obviously, you have to be pretty selective with how you use that. Can't really turn super well, but the rear locker, I keep on a lot, just because I don't feel like turning it off and on all the time. And yeah, they work great. So I'm a huge fan of the Eaton E-lockers, and the Nitro 488s have served me pretty well. The gearing ratio is great off-road. It's really, really enjoyable to drive. Nice and low gearing. So when you're going down hills, you can use your engine to slow you down, and you don't really have to touch your brakes nearly as much. All right, next order of business here, I have a OME Lift. It's with the front torsion bars, probably 2 to 2¼ inches lifted in the front here. And that's measuring from the hub to the fender. And then in the rear, I probably have about 3 inches here, hub to fender. Same shocks, and I have the OME 2864 springs. Those are their heavyweight springs, and that's to assist with the all the weight in the rear. As far as lifts go, there's a ton of options out there. The previous owner had this OME lift kit installed. I upgraded the springs just because it started sagging in the rear with the bumper, but there's a lot of great brands out there. Dobinson's is another really good one, so I don't know, just kind of pick your poison. Some people say that OME ride hard, but I have a fair amount of weight in this thing, so I think maybe that's why they don't ride as hard, or maybe I just don't notice it, or maybe just it's all that I've had, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. I also have extended bump stops. These are the Wheelers off-road bump stops. I have it in the front here, and then in the back right there as well. There's definitely some more options for bump stops now. I've seen the Perry Parts ones, so if I ever feel the need to upgrade, I'll probably go over those, but the Wheelers ones have been fine. The ride quality is definitely a lot better without having to worry about bottoming out. The bump stops do their job, so they do a good job. In the front here, I have a ARB front bumper. The previous owner had this installed actually right before I bought this Land Cruiser. It's a good front bumper. It's not the highest clearance in the world, but with what I'm using this thing for, it's not really a big deal. And what's also nice is that the ARB bumpers are designed to work with the factory crumple zones. So God forbid I get into an accident, I know that it's still gonna work as designed for the airbags with this bumper installed. If I ever did want to upgrade, maybe I'd move to Dissent off-road front bumper since I have the rear bumper, but honestly the ARB front bumper has been good by me and I can't really complain, and the mounting points on it are all pretty good. So yeah, I got the full bull bar here, which is good for animal strikes in Alaska. To be honest, I'm not really sure how much this would help me with a moose, but I don't know, it's probably better than nothing. And then on the bumper, I guess most important thing here would be not the lights, but the winch. So this is a Smittybilt 9500 back here, wired winch. It's a good winch. I bought it from a buddy. I've beaten the crap out of it. I've used it incorrectly being a new off-roader, and it's survived so far. So the only thing I've had to replace was the winch plug because some of the pins, or one of the pins, corroded on it and broke. But yeah, so it's actually been pretty low maintenance. I did upgrade to a synthetic rope. You can get a really expensive synthetic rope. I just got an Amazon brand one. It's worked fine, and then I have an extra one just in case it breaks that I keep in the back as well. Standard hook here. Could probably upgrade this to a better hook, but whatever, not really a big deal. And then we also have the ARB spotlights right here. These are both Solis spotlights. They're really great. They have the 5 different adjustable brightness settings, and I have them looped in with my high beams. So these can only go on if my high beams are on, but I can turn off just these through the ARB controller so that I can only have my high beams on, but there's no way that these go on without my high beams also being on, but I can have high beams and no spotlights if I want to. Speaking of headlights, I have some LED headlights in here that my friend Craig installed at his shop, Total Truck, while they were doing some other work here. They threw those in for me, and those have worked really well. It's not a daily driver, so I'm not super concerned with all this stuff, but lighting is definitely pretty important up here in Alaska, considering that it's dark a lot of the time, so I know lockers before light bars or light bars before lockers, all that stuff. But lighting up here is pretty important. I might have splurged on the lighting a little bit too soon, and I probably could have done some other upgrades before. But all in all, I don't necessarily regret getting the lighting to begin with. I might have just got it at a different point in the build. Also, I have a high lift jack on Southern Power Sports bull bar mounts right here. And it's the 60-inch jack just in case I need to jack from the bumper. And I also have a cover on it because it's important to make sure that you keep all the mechanisms here somewhat protected if you're going through mud or whatever. You'll also probably notice what these weird little nubs are here. And these are for my Alamosa antennas. I have a UHF antenna and a VHF antenna, so I'll show you real quick what those look like when they're actually mounted. Alright, so this is what it looks like with these two ginormous whips mounted. The VHF one is a little bit taller than the UHF one, but I seldom run the VHF antenna. I won't bore you too much with radio talk, but it is nice every now and then to have VHF capabilities. I have two radios in the rig as well, a Midland UHF and then a Yaesu VHF radio. So most of the time I just run this antenna here, and that's why I mounted it in this position here on the passenger side, because since I don't run this one all the time, it's a little bit more nice to have this spot not obstructed by the antenna, and I don't mind as much when it's over there on the passenger side, just so I can see what's right in front of me with a little bit less distraction there. If you have a 100 series, you probably noticed that this grill is not a factory grill, and this is the Landcruisergrilles steel grill. It's really great. It's probably the only aesthetic mod that I have on this thing that's just purely aesthetic, but I wouldn't maybe count it as purely aesthetic now after I got it, because I can show you, but it basically leaves you extra room behind your grill if you're using your winch and it has a wire and you need to plug it in. So I'll pop the hood real quick and just kind of show you what I mean by that. So this area that I'm illuminating right here, I have a lot more space to reach my hand and get down into the winch plug down in there. I can show you real quick. It's more room for my hand to move down here. So if I have a glove on or have a jacket on especially, I don't have to remove as much to get down in there to plug in my winch. Only an issue if you don't have your solenoid relocated. I don't have mine, it's just, down in there. So it actually is pretty nice for that, because the factory grill, I want to say, comes back to like here or something. It's a little bit more annoying to get your hand down in there. So I actually do really like this grill for that purpose. I had it powder coated locally as well, and they did a really good job, and they color matched the Toyota logo to my paint job. So it's kind of that like grayish blue. Working our way up here, I have the Baja S2 Sports for ditch lights mounted on the massive metal shop ditch light brackets here. I like having small ditch lights, and they're pointed down and out. And that's, obviously, so if there's a ditch next to you, you can actually see on the ground down and out. And having these small lights on here work really well, because ditch lights in general shouldn't be super heavy. So you definitely don't want to put too much weight on a mount like this, just because it might start to, get some play in it over time. These have been mounted for like 2-3 years maybe almost 3 years, and they don't have like any play in them at all. So I definitely recommend these mounts. They're pretty good. And the S2 Sports are a great little light here too. Doesn't need to be super bright in this location either if it's pointed down and out, because you just need to see, immediately next to you. So these are the cornering lights, which has a little bit of spot and a little bit of flood. So these, or just a full-on flood one, is probably fine. And then over here, we have my Snorkel, which in Alaska is definitely super important to have a snorkel. This is just an eBay snorkel that the previous owner gave to me but hadn't installed. So my buddy Clay, who's installed a few snorkels in his day, helped me out, and it's been a good snorkel so far. I don't really have any complaints from it. I have the Snorkel upgrade pre-cleaner head right here, and this has been awesome for my air filter. It does a great job at keeping out dust, and so I highly recommend, if you're gonna get a snorkel that's this style, this kind of classic, ARB Safari snorkel, that you get a pre-cleaner head like this, like one of the Cyclone ones. This one's Snorkel upgrade. I think I said that already, but definitely recommend getting something like this as opposed to the Ram Air Scoop, because this does a lot better job of filtering out dust and everything else. And some more armor. I have the white knuckle sliders here, and these have been great. I have the top plate as well. I Herculined it. It's this paint that has like a little grippy on it. And it's done a pretty good job, but it's kind of come off as I've pressure washed it a few times, so probably need to give it another go. And then I spray painted these as well. As you can see, I've beat on them pretty good, and I'll definitely need to do some touch-up spray paint on these. I just kind of have been avoiding it because I'm pretty lazy. But yeah, no, these sliders are really great. They wrap around your frame in a C shape with a U-bolt, and they've been really great sliders. They've actually pinched in a little bit part of my frame because it's a little bit rusty, and these sliders are so strong that it actually just transferred the load to my frame, which I thought was pretty funny. So I had my fab guy Kais fix that up for me. He did a good job. These sliders are angled. I believe it's somewhere around 15 degrees. You can also get the flat sliders too, but I like the angled sliders. It's not really super big of a deal for me and my wife to get in here. So maybe when we have kids someday, I'll want a flat slider, but honestly, I don't really think it makes too much of a difference either way. It's not like a huge inconvenience to have an angled slider, and it helps you a little bit on the, on the clearance side of things, but I wouldn't be too concerned either way if you go flat or angled slider for a build like this at least. And in the world of armor too, for the front skid plate as well as all the other skid plates, I have the ASFIR skid plate system. They've been pretty good. I might go to Dissent one of these days here just because these ones have kind of taken a beating, and I think the Dissent ones might be a little bit better. But I have the full skid plate system here from ASFIR all the way back to even cover the gas tank, which is nice that they offer a gas tank skid because that's definitely come in handy a few times here. So here's what the rest of the skids look like back here. And then the gas tank skid right here. That's definitely a good skid plate to have. I don't think Dissent makes a gas plate skid, so if I did upgrade, I'd probably keep this gas plate skid back here. The cross member here has definitely taken a beating, and it kind of bends into the exhaust over there, which is kind of annoying because it rattles around. As you can see right now, it's actually pretty bent back there. So I think the Dissent would probably be a good upgrade one of these days, but I'm not super concerned about it right now. Also in the front end there, I have a Tailor diff drop, and you can't really see it because the skid plate's covering it, and I'm not going to take off that skid plate just to show you the diff drop, but basically if you're unfamiliar with a diff drop, it drops your front differential, so if you have a lift, it kind of helps bring back your CVs to a more semi-normal angle. So for the 100s, it's usually recommended with a 2 or 2¼ inch lift in the front that you go with a 1-inch diff drop, just because the geometries on the 100s are a little bit more aggressive to begin with to the CVs. So you kind of got to be careful with that so you're not breaking CVs on the trail. Up front here, we have the Tailor extended end links. I like them. They afford a little bit of extra travel in the front while being able to retain your sway bar. And back here, I have the Tailor extended end links as well. I definitely like retaining the sway bar on the rear here just because it can get kind of squirrely if you remove the sway bar on your rear with a solid axle. So I would definitely recommend having the Tailor extended end links in the rear to retain your rear sway bar, and then you could probably get away with removing your front sway bar, but I haven't really noticed too big of a difference, and I'm probably not hitting stuff that's difficult enough to warrant removal of the front sway bar. So I don't know. Either way, the torsion bars are pretty limiting, so maybe I'd gain a little bit extra for travel in the front here without sway bars, but I don't think it would really help me that much. Alright, in the rear, this is one of my favorite mods. I have the Dissent Offroad V3 steel bumper, and this is an incredible bumper. It's high clearance, it has swing outs. It just really has it all for me for my off-road touring needs. So you have the chamfered or beveled toe points right there to hook up soft shackles to. And then I did not go with the towing cross member here just because I thought I didn't really need it. I maybe in hindsight would have gone with the towing cross member to have that high clearance tow hitch there in the middle is where it would have been. But it's not the end of the world either. So the side profile looks like this. And as you can see, I've scratched mine up a little bit, but it's powder coat, or it was powder coated locally, and they did a great job with it. And you can see the welds here are just immaculate. My camera had a hard time focusing on them, but they have really great welds on their bumpers, and they do a great job. And those are actually all done by a human being, which is incredible. I got a steel rear bumper before I did re-gear and lockers. That's not necessarily the answer for everybody, but for kind of the off-road touring needs that I have, I was hitting the factory rear bumper on a bunch of stuff, especially the spare tire, and I didn't want to do a spare tire inside the rig or on the roof of the rig. So a steel rear bumper was just kind of the natural solution for me, and it worked out great. I got to, move the spare tire, obviously, to back here, which was amazing. And then I was hitting the rear bumper even on a lot of stuff as well. So it's nice to now have all the armor in the rear here. And then kind of the last thing we got going on here is this third brake light replacement from, if you guys know, Ethan KC Overland on Instagram. He sells these. I think Valley Tech Fab might be the fabricator on these. Maybe it was Ethan's idea. Not really 100% on that. But these are great. It has two amber Baja S2 Sports and then one white Baja S2 Sport there. And then the dots are the Eagle Eye brake lights. I think I need to replace one of those. I think at least one of them is going bad. But yeah, no, great. I really like this as the third brake light replacement. It works really well. And it's nice to have those chase lights on dusty or really snowy days if we're like caught in a blizzard or something while we're out there. Great to have the chase lights. Otherwise, like every other light, they stay off because it's kind of stupid to roll around with your lights on when you don't need them on. But if you do need them, it's great to have them. And this is, I think, a good location for them. And it's kind of clean, looks flush, so they're not really in the way getting threatened to be, ripped off by a tree branch or anything. Alrighty, so that wraps up what we have going on the outside. So I'm going to go back to my desk. I'll explain you a little bit, just kind of my brief thoughts on the interior cab setup and my kind of methods there. And then I'll come back right in here and I'll show you through the inside. Talking interior cab setup goals here, my goal is to be set up to be space efficient for off-roading and touring travel while being able to hold my wife, dog, and camera gear along with occasional people in the second row. So the first thing you'll probably notice here is this giant tablet. This is a Phoenix Automotive PX6. It's basically an Android tablet. It works pretty well. It's got the HVAC controls here as well. And the previous owner had it installed, and whoever installed it did a pretty good job because it all kind of functions well. Every now and then your phone, when it's plugged in, will disconnect and you have to turn off the car and restart it. But honestly, I just use Bluetooth for music most of the time. I'm not really looking at this very often. If I was to do it again myself, I would probably just do one of those units here that doesn't have to replace your HVAC controls, if that's, I think, an option. But yeah, so that's kind of that. And then here we have the radios, so I can turn those on. And that's the Midland radio that I use most of the time. It's just on a one of those little night ice magnet mounts there. And then the Yaesu one down here. Let's see if I can turn some lights on. It's kind of dark. Down here, same deal, just on one of those night ice little ball mounts. Then I have a magnet mount for my phone right there. And here's the Yaesu. This is the VHF radio up here where it's mounted. Doesn't really get in the way of anybody's legs, which is nice. And then I'll show you the other side. And then here's where I have the Midland radio mounted right there. And being the MXT575, all the controls right here are actually on the radio unit itself, which is nice because I don't want to be fiddling with the radio down by my leg. So it's nice to just be able to have everything right here on the remote unit. And then the radio is just kind of tucked down by my legs. In order to turn on the radios, I have right here this Auxbeam. Let me see if I can get some external light on it there. So this is my my Auxbeam switch panel here. It's the 8 gang. It has the, see if I can just get in close there. It has the rear lights that I showed you earlier. So this is for the white light, or sorry, this is for the amber lights. And then that one right there, the backup, is for the white light. And then I have my front and rear lockers here as well, if I can get it to focus. So I have my rear locker first because I use that the most, and then front locker after that. And then radio here, and then these 3 are blank. Probably move my ditch lights to those eventually because the ditch lights currently are just on that switch right here. So I will probably loop those into the panel one of these days here, but it's not really a big deal. And this right here is the controller for my ARB spotlights. And basically it has those 5 different brightness levels here, and then you can just press the ARB button to turn the spotlights on and off. So really easy to use. And depending on the lighting situation here, you know, sometimes too much light is actually kind of blinding, so it's definitely nice to have varying levels. Right here on the high-low shifter, I have the Landcruiserphil extension, which is awesome. I definitely recommend getting that if you're shifting out of high and low a lot. It's definitely a really good extension to have. It doesn't, I don't have to reach down quite as low to get to that when I'm going into low range there, so that's pretty good. I also didn't mention that this switch panel here is actually mounted on I want to say it's the Land Cruiser Garage ashtray mount, because this is where that factory ashtray used to be, right down in here. So I would definitely, if you're going to put a switch panel, I think this is a great place to put a switch panel. But it kind of differs Land Cruiser to Land Cruiser, because I know not all the different years have the same setup on the inside of the cab here. This is the Scangage 3, and it's hooked up to the OBD port, and basically it'll read me any codes in real time and can show you a bunch of other interesting stuff too. So my battery voltage is kind of low because I'm running an accessory, so that's probably not good. And yeah, I can have a whole little mile per gallon run down here. And then down here I have a little bit some more kind of in-depth settings, and you can change these as you see fit. These are just the ones that I put in there for now, but I'll change them every now and then if I'm looking for something in particular. And back here I have a kind of barrier that stops Mishka from getting into the front seat here. Look, trying to keep setting on throttle. Mishka, this is not the time! And I can put them in here and see how well that works here in a second. And it also has some storage on it as well. So what I put down here is my Yeti 200X. So I'll zoom in on that. So this right here is my Yeti 200X. And it's a small little battery unit here, but it fits perfectly where the little trash part of this unit is, where you'd kind of throw your garbage in. The Yeti 200X fits perfectly snug right in here. So I definitely am looking forward to that, because before I was putting it on top of the center console and it was sliding off. Oh, there goes one of the neighborhood children. And it was sliding off the center console there all the time. And then I put a bunch of cables and other things up here, because basically while I'm off-roading, I'm also usually charging drone batteries, camera batteries, and I need something to do that with. So I have the Yeti 200X here, and then I have it plugged into the car via the cigarette lighter. And it kind of charges this, and then this charges the other things. And then while I'm sleeping, I'll throw in, plug in my batteries into this, and then it charges overnight. And then if I'm off-roading the next day, it'll bring this back to 100% while I'm driving. So it's a pretty good little system here. I definitely recommend having some kind of battery system if you're going to be off-roading for, a few days. And then you probably also noticed that the seats have these seat covers all over them. So these are bought through Equipped One here. And Equipped One is the U.S. supplier for these South African made, I believe, Escape Gear canvas seat covers. So if you're out there getting dirty off-roading, I definitely recommend getting some canvas seat covers. These will pay huge dividends to you. They keep your leather seats pretty clean. I got the full set with the center console cover, and then we also have the full seat cover set in the back here. All right, Mishka. So Mishka likes to jump up in the front seat here all the time, and I'm kind of hoping that this blocks him from doing that. So let's go see if I can call him into the front seat and see if he'll make it. Stay. Mishka, can you come into the front seat? Can you come into the front seat? No, I didn't think so. No, you can't come on my lap while I'm driving. That's really annoying. Yeah. But you're really cute. Alrighty, that wraps up part 1 for this video. So if you enjoyed, please like, share, subscribe. And part 2 is next, where we'll cover storage for off-road and camping gear.